Hey, Randy Joe here, and welcome back to the channel where we have been covering every month a different Kate Bush album. Now, 2 weeks ago, just over 2 weeks, I covered her second album, Lionheart, which I was a little harsh on, I'll admit. My biggest complaint was that it wasn't quite up to par with what I've heard of Kate Bush so far, that being Hounds of Love. Again, I started the series off with that simply because that was what I did for Art Pop April. And then I decided to check out the rest of her discography starting from the beginning. So The Kick Inside, her debut, I thoroughly loved, enjoyed, thought it was fantastic. I thought it was a great 70s album that feels very much of the 70s. While Lionheart, although still has some great tracks, did feel like The Kick Inside leftovers. It felt like a poorly executed sequel, which again, a lot of that can be put onto the label, pushing her to release it so soon after The Kick Inside. It came out the same year after all. And for that, I do think the album did suffer from not having enough time to really, cook in the oven and fully develop some of the tracks. That being said, there are still some fantastic tracks on Lionheart, and I do think it is still a very solid album, especially when you compare it to a lot of artists', average work, because at the end of the day, Kate Bush is in a league of her own. Now, today though, we are continuing off with her discography with her third album, Never Forever. Released in 1980, Never Forever is 37 minutes long, 25 seconds. It's fairly short, and I decided to check it out sooner rather than later this time around, not waiting the full month, simply because Lionheart was a little bit short, and Never Forever is also another fairly short record. And, you guys seem to want it. I've gotten a lot of comments saying, they want the Kate Bush videos quicker than just once a month. So I'll do them when I can. Can't guarantee it'll always be every 2 weeks like I'm doing with this one here. But I do want to try to get them out at least once a month, guaranteed between the 20th and the 25th. But today it is the 8th. So you are getting this one a little premature. Now, I'm going to quit my yapping. I want to get into the meat here, the meat and the potatoes. With the opening track here, Babooshka, 164 million streams. We will be following the lyrics as much as possible, and I will try to figure out what was being sung here. I don't want to, dig into the interpretations of others too quickly. I like to finish out the track and then perhaps do a little bit more research on it, if need be. But again, sometimes you can figure out what she's saying right from the get-go. Let's go off Babooshka. I am stoked for this record because I know she handles production a lot more on this album. This is where I think we're really going to hear her come into her own sonically. Right off the bat, seems like she's very clearly this protagonist here, this woman, is trying to figure out if her husband is disloyal, it would seem. Very common now in today's social media. You see a lot of men and women try tricking their loved one into falling for disloyalness. She doesn't see herself as beautiful anymore. Oh, I love that backup vocal on Babooshka. Not quite sure what the word Babooshka means. Sounds Russian in origin. Oh, I love the deeper, male backup vocal there, that kind of mysterious delivery. Oh, is that some synth work? This man's falling in love with his own wife all over again. This is like the Pina Colada song, if you know the story of that one. Being catfished by his own wife here, and re-falling in love, it would seem. Is she gonna have a grand reveal here? Revealing who she is to her husband? Or has her husband figured it out? Maybe he's fallen in love. Fallen in love with this version of his own wife. Oh. I love this chorus. And the sound effects too. That's, again, getting into the Kate Bush I know from Hounds of Love, getting a little bit more experimental. Oh. Beautiful production on this one. Oh. Is that like a mandolin or something? That deeper vocal still there. The clanging noise, the noise, is this perhaps some sort of fight? Oh. Beautiful transition. Let's go right into Delius here. Let's just quickly talk about Babooshka. Very quick. Incredible opener. Super well produced. I love the story in it. Very well written. Production-wise, again, though, this is definitely... It already feels more grand than Lionheart and, most of the work, even on the Kickin' side. We're really feeling, we're really seeing Kate Bush come into her own, I think, here, artistically, right off the bat. Let's go into this one here. I think it's pronounced Delius, which that transition it is, so smooth. I like the gentle percussion, like the tick, 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 tick. Oh. Such a beautiful set of instruments on this one coming together. And it's also smooth. There's so much to pick apart. This one's got a very eerie atmosphere to it. Kind of feeling heavenly with her vocals, feeling like an angel with that wavering. I love this one so far. Oh my goodness. 2 tracks in, this is already fantastic. Delius here, I'm loving the whole atmosphere of this one. It feels like it's so subtle. It's nothing super in your face. It's not super explosive. It's really nice. I don't want to say background music, that sounds like a negative, but it's fantastic, just like kind of subtle elements all coming together to make something more grand, bigger than its some of its parts. I really like her use of the backup vocals, this male backup vocal that was here, and Babooshka. Oh. That deep, kind of groaning moans of this man. Again, feels kind of religious in a sense. And that kind of rattling metallic sound in the background there. That's a nice touch. It stays throughout the whole track, that kind of rattling, but I love how it's built upon so gradually. Okay, let's pause it before we go into Blow Away here. Already spoke on Babooshka. Flowed beautifully right into Delius here, which was almost 3 minutes. It felt shorter, maybe because the pacing of it was so fantastic, maybe because of how subtle, like I said, it was. A track that feels like, individually, if you were to separate all the instruments, doesn't seem like anything too grand, but altogether it feels like a nice swirling sound of production that kind of builds further upon itself before your very own, ears, and you get this just gorgeously kind of relaxing, laid back instrumental, and her vocals don't even feel like they are meant to be one that you're supposed to pay too much attention to. They also feel like an instrument just in the way she sings it. Again, very subtle, very quiet, very kind of laxed. Is there anything I'm missing on it here? Song was inspired by the life of composer Frederick Delius. Do I know what that means? No, I am not an expert on composers here. Just incredible, pure genius, Kate Bush. I agree with Mr. Lionel N here from 3 years ago. Song of the Summer is what it's called here. But on Spotify, for some reason, it removes that. But still, Delius, Song of Summer, fantastic. Super subtle. Loved it. Really nothing I could say in terms of negative so far on this album. It is a beautiful sense of production. Let's go into Blow Away for Bill, as it's called here, but on Spotify it's just called Blow Away. Don't know why they're leaving some of them off. Maybe it's just a anniversary remaster kind of type thing where they just... A man dedicated to his craft. Ooh. I love her self-harmonizing as well. Picturing a choir of Kate Bushes here. I'm not sure what this one's about. A musician who has perhaps passed? Maybe talking on the eternal sound of music after your passing? I'm not sure. Haven't spoken on her piano work so far. Mostly because there's nothing to say. Not that it's bad, but it's what I've come to expect from her, which is she's a great pianist. I would imagine it's her on the piano here. Personnel, it looks like it is her on the piano, which I've come to expect. God, she does a lot here too. Vocals, piano, keyboards, harmony vocals, Fairlight CMI synthesizer, which first time she's used synth so far in her discography from what I can tell. More synths. As I said though, great pianist. Those strings in the background. Okay. I like that one a lot. Not sure what it was about. Let's pause it. Let's switch over to the interpretation here. Bearing the dedication for Bill. This song is a tribute to Bill Duffield, a lighting technician who died after the first concert date of Kate's The Tour of Life. Jesus. The song envisions an afterlife of musicians who are greeted on arrival by the likes of Minnie Riperton, Keith Moon, Sid Vicious, Buddy Holly, Sandy Denny, and Mark Bolan. Oh, rest in peace, Mark Bolan. Incredibly underrated, but we're not getting into that. I thought that was a slew of references to other musicians. I just wasn't quite sure. But an interesting and touching tribute. Very nice of her to tribute a song to this lighting technician from her concerts. You know, really shows how much she still cares about those around her as an artist. You know, she doesn't let it get to her head. That's for sure. Very respectful. I like that one a lot. I'm going to say now, before we go any further, the key element to this album for me so far that I'm picking up on is her use of subtlety. She's a lot less in your face this time around, which I'm liking. I'm liking just the careful progression of all of the instrumentals and vocals and such. Let's go into All We Ever Look For. This reminded me of Paper Mario. This intro here, the whistling. Any Paper Mario fans out there? I like the playful nature of this one. I like the kind of Eastern inspired sound of this one. On those strings. Oh, this one is so whimsical and playful. Oh. What is this backup vocal? It's reminding me of the back end of Hounds of Love with the kind of eerie, you know, male vocals on that album. It's like this like raspy, hushed delivery. I like it. I like it a lot. Is this perhaps about like searching for your parents' comfort, perhaps? All we ever look for is another womb, leave the breast and then the nest, and then we regret you ever left. Going back to our moms, comforting, nurturing. Freud would love this one. I love that elevation into this very whimsical instrumental. Huh? It's like she's walking around my brain, opening different doors. It's like opening doors to different memories, perhaps, of your life, different phases. Is this perhaps finding your peace, finding your comfort, whether it be God, drug, a hug? Oh my goodness. I haven't had strong of a reaction to Kate Bush's work like this since listening to Hounds of Love. Oh my goodness. Okay, so what I'm gathering is this whole track is about finding that sense of comfort, or maybe sense of purpose, and how people seek out what is most instantly gratifying, maybe, whether it be drugs, God, or your loving embrace of your mother. That's what I'm gathering. We haven't checked the interpretation here. Not about me, it's about family relationships generally. Our parents got beaten physically, we get beaten psychologically. The last line, all we ever looked for but never did score. Okay, yeah. Kind of similar to what I was saying. How people cope when faced with problem. People turn to religion, comfort, or people. Essentially, I was, for the most part, close to the concept of the track. I loved it, though. And I just want to say, so far, we're 4 tracks in. I think every track here has blown me away. Has blown me away in some capacity or another. They're all so unique, but it still feels very uniform to the album. Again, subtlety being a key element, I think, here. I love the way she walked around my brain throughout that track. That was so unique and interesting as an artist to do. Really creates a whole image in every track and a whole atmosphere in every track. Very few artists really do that for me. However, certain artists in the background does. Shout out David Bowie, one of my favorite musicians of all time. Which, if you guys want me to do a tier list for his discography one day, let me know in the comments, and maybe I will. But Never Forever so far is phenomenal. I'm really excited to continue here. We got Egypt. I could potentially see this album being one of my favorites by the end of her discography, with repeated listenings. I'm curious to see how this album will compare to some of her more commonly talked about works, such as Hound of Love or The Dreaming, which I have not heard The Dreaming yet, and I'm excited to check that out. But as I said, I am interested in seeing how this compares, simply because this is such a breathtaking album so far. Ooh. That synth kind of sounded like a flute almost. Kind of creating this Egyptian sound. I love the bass on this one too. It's got a nice large sound to it. Maybe some sort of like synth. Kate Bush. No, you know the mainstream don't like that. Not afraid to hit you with the blunt lyricism. Love it. The synth work on this album is fantastic. I love how refreshing it is in her discography. Speaking on the Sphinx, I would imagine there. Cats being such a, massive element to Egyptian culture and history. Country I would love to go to, but I've heard it's a tough tourist area. God. The synths, the strings, the backup vocals, this atmosphere. So some like eerie whispering. It's like spirits are taking hold. And those drums, I didn't even notice, ramping up. Oh my goodness. Oh, and this is like a release. Closest we'll get to a drop. The way that built up. Oh, that drumming. Kind of feeling proggy in a way. Egypt, fantastic track. A dedication to the country, of course. Similar to a track about England on Lionheart. It seems like it is speaking on the culture of this country that she shows such admiration for. That was a great one as well. No complaints. Similar to what I said about Egypt being, not the best tourist area from what I've heard. According to Kate herself in 1980 for an interview, she said the song is very much about someone who has not gone there, thinking about Egypt, going, oh, Egypt, it's so romantic, the pyramids. Then in the breaks, there's meant to be a reality of Egypt, the conflict. It's meant to be how blindly we see some things. Oh, what a beautiful world, Then when there's shit and sewers all around you. Kind of what I was touching upon with, the touristy areas, the tourist elements, really, of Egypt, it not being as up to the hype as people would think it to be, because as I've heard, it is, a dangerous place to be. Lots of conflict and lots of theft for people who are just going there to have a good time. It's not a place to have a good time from what I've heard. I've seen a lot of people say it is, one of the worst places you can visit in terms of expecting more than you're actually getting. So kind of interesting that she made a track about that. And she executes it quite well because you can hear the conflict in that kind of eerie outro. Let's get into the wedding list here, though. Egypt was, like I said, fantastic. And she's a complex artist. I'll say that. Right off the bat, this one's got a bit more of a traditional sound, though. There's a murder. Oh. That harmonica leading into the mystery. Ooh, that drum being like the shot. Covered in blood. What? I'm so confused. Is this man who killed her husband someone she was intertwined with? She's getting her revenge. She's gonna pop a cap in his ass. Oh. Unlike Lionheart, I feel like the tracks on this, the tracks on this LP do feel much more fully realized. And the storytelling feels much more gradual and kind of built upon itself. Ooh. I like the guitars here. A nice syrupy sound. Oh my goodness. Lots of death in this track. What is she, Shakespeare? Here I am dancing and grooving. And a baby has died. Oh my god. Super fun, catchy, upbeat instrumental throughout this one. With such a dark story. But it's written almost like a good mystery. Oof. And a stark end to the wedding list. The song was inspired by Francois Truffaut's film called The Bride Wore Black. It tells of a groom who is accidentally murdered on the day of his wedding day by a group of 5 people who shoot at him from a window. The bride succeeds in tracking down each one of the 5 and kills them in a row, including the last one who happens to be in jail. I think that's the movie. I'm not sure if she's doing a direct interpretation of that or her own version of it. Kate said, "Revenge is so powerful and futile in the situation in the song. Instead of just one person being killed, it's 3. Her husband, as we see at the beginning, the guy who did it, who was right on top of the wedding list with the silver plates, and her, because when she's done it, there's nothing left. All her ambition and purpose has gone all into that one guy. She's dead. There's nothing there." Ooh. What a storyteller she is. Even when she's kind of reinterpreting another piece of work, such as this, or Wuthering Heights, obviously I feel like that's her most iconic kind of reinterpretation. She does so with her own unique twist and really makes it her own, and it's just as strong as the source material. This person here says Kill Bill. Yeah, I can see it. I can see the comparison here. Violin. Let's go on to Violin here. Are we gonna hear a violin? Yep, that's a violin. This is a track about her love for the violin. So it's got like a kind of hard rocking sound to it. And there's that violin, of course. Yeah, for a track about a violin, this is much more hard rocking than one would expect, I feel like. Didn't Nero play the violin? Am I wrong in that? I'm laughing because the last track was so serious in its story. She can really come across as such a literary heavy artist who is so serious at times and then goes right into stuff like this, which feels a little bit silly. Not a dig, once again, but singing, jigging along with the fiddly D, it does feel obviously very different when you go from talking about, murder, suicide, to this. But just singing about her love of the violin here is what I'm gathering. The rock sound is so unexpected. Like this guitar. The song is called Violin, not Guitar. But the solo is shredding. That's Alan Murphy, electric guitar solo, track 7. Murphy really shredding it at that midpoint. This gradual come down. Okay, real quick. That one felt pretty simplistic in terms of, the focus of it. Just your love for the violin, I think, is the main track. She hits her highest note on record here, an astonishing F6, which she follows up with an extremely low G sharp 3. Damn. her vocal is a roller coaster, which I will agree. Vocally, this thing is like super, ranged out. That being said, I do find this one to be the weakest so far on the album, at least on first listen. Let's go into the Infant Kiss. I think it just comes down to not being as rich as some of the other tracks. Like she's falling in love with this baby, but I don't think it's of a creepy origin as some might make it out to be. It's a sweet motherly love, I think. Like the kind of reverb almost on that piano. The strings wrapping around us. Whoa. Kind of an eeriness to this. I'm not sure how I feel with this one. It's unsettling. I feel very unsettled right now. Oh, turn of the screw. 2.5 minutes. Would not have picked up on the origins of this one. Turn of the Screw, I am familiar with. I've seen The Innocents some time ago. Stories about the governess who believes the ghost of her predecessor's dead lover is trying to possess the bodies of the children she is looking after. That makes a lot more sense lyrically. I was very confused as to where that was going. Let's go into Night Scented Stock, which is a short 50-minute. Infant Kiss, I didn't dislike it, but it's very short. It's definitely going to take more for me to pick up on its kind of subtler moments. Like I said, a very subtle record. A short 50 minutes, or 50 seconds. But I can't complain about just hearing her voice. So soft. Angelic. Let's go into Army Dreamers here. No stops. 72 million streams. This is a big one. Oh, we got that kind of deep male vocal, which she uses quite a bit on the first half of this record. About a teenager lost at war. Not long after Vietnam, this one would have been written. I like you could hear like the gun cocking there. Kind of listing all the things he could have been. I love this one. You got the shouting of the sergeant there. This one's delicate with the strings. There it is, that cock of a gun. Probably shouldn't say that word and do that motion. That was a fantastic one. I loved how this one was very touching. Again, super subtle. I cannot stress the subtleties of this record being the highlight, because there's so much complexities in the softness of its sound. God, I love it. I'm loving this record. Let's go right into Breathing here. Close out the album. 5.5 minutes. The longest track so far. Ooh. That kind of marching band-esque drumming. Especially after that war track. I love the different, like here, the self-harmonizing. And then a cleaner vocal for the main singing. Really builds on that atmosphere that she would later really push on her later records. Let's give this a pause. I feel like I gotta know what's going on here. The lyrics of this song are about a fetus, very much aware of what is going on outside the womb and frightened by a nuclear fallout, which implies that the song is set either during a nuclear war scare or a post-apocalyptic birth. The lyrics also refer to the fetus absorbing nicotine from the mother smoking, inspired by the tone of Pink Floyd's The Wall, which I just had on my wall for the past month, and now I just took it off. Would have been fitting. How did she come up with this? How she loves writing about, she does a great job, I should say, writing about children, either of a young age or unborn. This is not the first time she's spoken on fetuses. But goddamn, she has a way with a narrative. And again, like I said before, does not step away from the taboo. Makes a lot more sense now. I'm getting the story in the lyrics. Ooh, there's that nicotine. She's smoking away. Oh my god. This is such a dark atmosphere being developed. The nuclear scare here. That kind of like PSA of some sort in the background here. A mushroom cloud. Put your thumb out. This was a lead single? That's insane. This is an insane lead single. Holy shit. Oh my god. Yeah, I can hear the Pink Floyd, The Wall comparison. This is reminding me of that kind of regime that takes place in the second half. Christ. So eerie. Very disturbing sounding track. The most disturbed on the album, I would say. And we had some disturbing elements to this LP, such as the wedding list, of course. Or even the infant kiss having that gothic sound. And Army Dreamers. This is a heavy album, heavier than Lionheart, heavier than The Kick Inside. Wow. I gotta take a moment to collect my thoughts. Think about what I gotta say here. Just gonna rattle off whatever comes to mind. Gonna say what I want to say, which is, it's hard to compare. Like I said, I don't want to compare too much, but at the same time, this is a discography deep dive. Comparisons are inevitable. And in doing so, boy, this is where Kate Bush really comes into her own. She produced this thing, as far as I know. I don't know if she entirely produced it, but she took on production duties to a much stronger extent with this one. And it feels like you can hear that difference. You can hear how much more creative freedom she took with this in comparison to Kick Inside and Lionheart. Production-wise, this thing is incredible. It is definitely more experimental than she's ever gotten before, on those two records, and it is definitely pushing away from the mainstream. It is shocking that Kate Bush was ever even taken in so much by the world the way she was in the mainstream, because, again, she is a very unique artist in the same way that David Bowie is a unique artist, or other musicians such as Lou Reed, for example, comes to mind. Artists who don't shy away from writing about the taboo. And this one, again, very clearly full of taboo elements. It's so well written. It's such a tight album overall, lyrically and thematically. On top of that, production-wise, like I said, this thing is super dense, while at the same time, very subtle. It is throwing a lot at you, but it feels like it is on a lot of these tracks, like the sum of its parts are greater as a whole kind of thing. I'm still taken aback by some of the tracks here, just thinking about them. It feels very cohesive. Every track here feels unique to itself, yet this whole album feels like it all kind of belongs to one another. None of the tracks here feel like they are out of place, except for maybe if I had to pick one, Violin. I personally do think Violin is the weakest track here. But other than Violin, I think every track here is super well written, super clever, super subtle, and dense at the same time in their production. The playing of all the musicians here, whether it be Kate Bush, who does a ton of duties throughout this thing, or the guitar solo on the 7th track from Mr. Alan Murphy, which I thought was beautifully soaring, or you have the backup vocals throughout this thing, which you have these like a deeper hushed male vocals, which become a much bigger element on the Hounds of Love. I know I spoke on that when I listened to it, and it was something that I like there, and I love it here. And like I say, everything here feels like a small element that, when together, becomes a bigger picture. And that really is, I think mirrored, if anything, by the album cover, which, let's get into that real quick. Gorgeous album art, which, showcases all these small elements like a collage. And I would say that this album, in a way, feels like a collage of sounds kind of put together to create, like I said, a larger sum of its parts. I'm so taken aback. I can't even speak on it. I feel so just shocked because it is such a huge pivot from Lionheart and a breathtaking step in a refreshing direction for her. And I do know that she gets even crazier on the next album, The Dreaming, which we will cover. But that'll be our next album. Great album. Excited for The Dreaming. If you want me to cover The Dreaming sooner rather than later, if you don't want to wait the full month, maybe you want it by the end of July, I can do that. Let me know, and I will cover it. If you guys want to see me do The Dreaming by the end of the month, then I will do that. Just let me know in the comments. As always, if you like this video, please hit like, subscribe. If you want to see more Kate Bush content, again, we are doing the rest of her discography, so go ahead and hit subscribe. I will be covering the rest, and then, of course, I would like to try to do a live stream with you guys where we will talk about her discography at whole, and maybe I will do a few more things, such as a tier list of her whole discography once I've heard it all and taken it all in and digested it fully. And I might do some other things, whatever I can think of, that would really get the most out of Kate Bush here. Subscribe if you're a Kate Bush fan and you like this sort of content. And I, of course, do album reactions to any other albums, whether they be new, old, specific genres, whatever comes my way. So again, if you just like reaction content, please subscribe. As always, my name is Randy Joe. I greatly appreciate you watching, and I'm signing off.